So welcome everyone to this session. Before we begin the larger panel, we're delighted to have a little bit of time with Donna. And I was hoping that you could tell the group and the world about your work in Haiti and your commitment at CGI and what that might hold for other models of similar activities elsewhere.
Well, I think you said it so beautifully. It is a model. Haiti, yes, my heart belongs to Haiti. There's no question. Everybody who has seen me and been with me, I go around and say, have you been to Haiti? I want you to see what I've made in Haiti. I'm wearing Haiti. You know, what are you wearing? It's made in Haiti. What are you carrying? It's made in Haiti. What's it made out of? Paper. Most people ask me where, you know, what it's made out of, and it's paper. My first trip to Haiti happened by accident, not actually accident. I have an organization called Urban Zen, where we connect, collaborate, communicate, and create change, completely inspired here by Clinton Global Initiative, by bringing people together who really want to make change in this world. And starting in the mind, the body, and the spirit. Because where does creativity start? It starts in your soul, a soulful economy. How do we really help the developing world? How do we look at all the problems that we're faced with today? They have the answers. It is about collaboration. And it's a question of how do we collaborate with these people to create an environment and a sustainability that gives them their heritage and their passion and their soul. I went down to Haiti, and everybody was looking at the disaster of Haiti, and I'm going, oh my God, that's so cool. Oh, I love that. Where'd you get that? And I see the most amazing craft people of Haiti. It was just astonishing to me. So, of course, I was designing. I was designing jewelry. I was designing bags. And I went into a papier-mâché place. And Joey Adler and obviously people from wonderful Clinton Initiative, Greg took me down and protected me completely. At first, I had my mask on and, oh, my God, my pills. And I was so fearful and all of that. And then I go in the back of a truck. I mean, that's how I like to travel Haiti. They don't like that way, but I do. Anyway, when I go to Haiti, all I see is every single person is creative. And with creativity, that is their soul, we can create a new economy. How do we do this? It is about communication. How do we communicate it? Is creating the community. How do we create the community of a conscious change in community? We all sit here and we all get it. But how do we make this happen? It's not something that happens overnight. Obviously, we go into the stores and we buy clothes. They go on markdown. We've lived all of that. You know, we buy it on sale. This is a different way of looking at things. It's not the same. You can't look at something and say, my God, that's so beautiful, in 3 months and put it on markdown. It's just unacceptable. As a designer, I have to perform every 3 months down a runway showing what's new, what's new, what's new. And it's exciting and liberating, as any artist would love it. But where is the soul of it? You know, how hard can you put your soul into that? When I went to Haiti, I realized that every single person there was an artist. They were all artisans. I found my friends, and it was delicious. So we started working with the artisans, and a lot of them are here today. I feel them all around me. I would not be there if it weren't for them. And realized what the issues were. I thought I could do it like that. Well, everyone sitting in this room knows nothing happens like that. So I have to get younger, not older. But the way to do this is through education, vocational education. Be able to create a vocational education where the artisans could not only, because I went to the shows and I go, oh my God, look at the jewelry and the shoes and the bags and all of this. But it's not up to the level of the global world that we live in today. You know, how do you become a Gucci, a Louis Vuitton? And we're living in the world of an economy world where everybody, no matter where you make it, we're all aware of it. There's so much more to be said. There's a story about it. There's a heart about it. There's a soul about it. So like this necklace that I'm wearing is horn. And if people look at the website and see how it was made, they probably say, I can't believe you do this. I'm the happiest person when I'm in Haiti. I love it. And Haiti has given me so much. I cannot be more thankful. And as I look around CGI, I want to go to every single country. So, of course, there's India, but we are talking about Haiti. So what we feel is a necessary requirement is vocational education. That is about us calling in the designers, the experts in the field all over the world to go down there and work with the people. My model for this is a gentleman by the name of John Hardy in Bali. I don't know if any of you who know of his name or what he's done, but he created a luxury jewelry collection in Bali in a bamboo school, in bamboo environment, eco-friendly, didn't take much to put it up, and created product that was quality product for around the world. And I looked at that and I said, when Haiti happened, Bali was my inspiration. So I am committed, my commitment, I'm committed, obviously I'm committed here to CGI, but completely committed, this year to build our first educational program, vocational educational program down in Haiti, and bring in the artisans and my friends and friends of the world and create a collaboration of all designers to get us involved in helping the developing world and creating product that has sustainability, that is runway material, that every person will say, I want that, where did you get it?
That's terrific. Now, talk to us a little bit also. Yes, exactly. Talk to us a little bit also about how you're making your consumers aware of the origin of products and how you're raising awareness for among the people who are buying things about sustainable supply chains and where the things are coming from.
It's been a challenge. And I think probably the first thing when I went down to Haiti, everybody wanted to get online, to start selling online. I said, please, I really have to say, I don't know if anybody knows the product that I do there, these amazing tobacco leaves out of paper mache and tobacco. And one person does it. Now, if that went online throughout the world, one person making tobacco leaves. Now, we know that in the supply chain is not very reasonable. So we've got to build it up. But where is it being done? He didn't have a place to do it. You know, it was just being done on the ground somewhere picking up tobacco. But what a great campaign. How to stop cancer. No smoking tobacco. Have a tobacco leaf on your table. How beautiful. Now we have to educate people. We have to bring that up. So that is through communication. We have websites. I travel all over the world. And people ask me, you know, where I do it. I've done shows. I've done London at the Olympics. Harrods was kind enough to give us a platform there. I have a store, Urban Zen, where I bring Haiti into the Hamptons and Haiti into places and Haiti into LA. And if one more person says Haiti, Haiti is a heart, but Haiti is a model. And for every person from every single country here, there's a heart and a soul. So through communication, through the website, through all of you sitting here today, to be able to purchase a paper mache bag. People don't believe this is paper. And I walked in.
That's paper.
It's really paper. But I walked into, and I saw these masks, because Haiti, everybody knows, they're made for, you know, the masks for, the, you know, the carnival. Carnival's great, and Halloween is fantastic. But once the season's not going to help. So I said, well, why doesn't everybody make a paper bag? And we'll have everybody walking around in their paper bags, and we'll have the Louis Vuitton paper bag, you know, Bottega paper bag. Everybody needs a paper bag, right? So we started with the paper bag. Now the fragrance, and that was the first thing I thought of. What is Haiti known for? Vetiver. How fantastic. To build a vetiver fragrance, and I know that was being launched yesterday with partner of mine in crime, Nomad Russell James, Two Worlds. But I want every designer to have this vetiver fragrance, and we create all the bottles of artistic ability. So getting the messaging out of soul and creativity and the partnerships that I have, and my wonderful friends at Virgin, which has the mind, the body, and spirit. Zaina, I know, maybe Zaina's here, not here. She's not? Okay. We get together, Tom's shoes. Having Tom down in Haiti, that is the coolest thing in the whole world. So, of course, I went into the factory. I wanted to paint them myself. I said, no, Tom, we can embroider them. We can paint them. We can design them. I could give it to every designer. Last year, we did 1 million hearts for Haiti, and I gave a heart to every single designer. And eBay put it on and to raise money for the artisans and the community. So our message here, and what my job is to open your heart and open your soul, open your creativity, and help these people, because they are the true artisans, not me. I just deliver the message.
Beautifully said. Thank you very much, and thank you for your commitment.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our 4 panelists. Jean Baderschneider, National Leadership Council Polaris Project. Sir Fazle Hasan Abed, founder and chairperson, BRAC. Rick Ridgeway, Vice President Environmental Affairs, Patagonia Works. And Nina Smith, Founding Executive Director, GoodWeave, USA.
So welcome to all the panelists. We're here this morning, or this afternoon, to talk about, in some sense, the underbelly of globalization. The effect of global labor supply over the past 2 to 3 decades has doubled to quadrupled. That has produced remarkable advances along some dimensions, but it's also caused some problems, including, say, with regard to inequality in the United States. But here we're really talking about some of the problems it may be creating across the globe. And I think the one that we'd like to start with, and I'd love to hear from Jean on what you and your organization are doing to combat it, is slavery and human trafficking.
Okay, thanks, Peter, and it's really a pleasure to be here with this great group that you're going to find out in a few minutes on this very important issue. I'm going to address your question through a story. 6 years ago on a Saturday night, I was coming out of Luanda, Angola, and I was standing in the holding area for a BA first class. And as I stood there, it was midnight, I saw a young, beautiful black girl standing in the crook of the arm of a pockmarked face, 50-ish kind of man. And as I looked at that and studied it, it was odd that it was there, and he had control of her. And as I started to study, she had a wig on, and she had on new clothes, and it was clear to me that she was about 12 or 13. So I realized right then and there that this was not a normal thing. And I started to move toward her, got pretty close to her, and then he pulled her out of line, put her on a chair. So I've been going to Africa for 30 years, and I thought, this is not cool. They had help on the ground. I'm going to get on the plane, door shuts, I'm going to do something. Get on the plane, shut the door, talk to everyone. We see this all the time. There's nothing we can do. Well, you don't know me, but I was not to be denied. So I started pursuing all the way to the pilot, got the same answers. I landed in London, went to the office, tried to take action. Now I'm going to compress the story. United Nations, UNICEF, State Department, who knew how many offices existed in those places? Got to run around, try to hire a private investigator in the US and the UK. Nothing happened. Didn't find her. Hold that thought. Same time in my day job, before I left for Africa, we were working on the fact that there were not enough skilled trades in the world. And we were making some decisions about bringing and using labor services to staff up. So we were bringing Filipino workers, welders, into the Gulf Coast. 2 days after I get back from Africa, I hear Brad Miles talk on CNN. Brad Miles runs a human trafficking organization, and he's talking about human trafficking. I hadn't felt that impotent in a long time. Didn't understand what trafficking was, didn't understand the degree of forced slavery, didn't understand sex trafficking. Jumped up, next morning I called him, he whipped into action. But while I was there, a call came into the hotline, 30 Filipino workers in a Midwest state had been brought in against their will, and it was forced labor. There started my journey. So, informal activities within a corporate environment, one, I immediately started talking in global forums, employee forums all over the world about trafficking and slavery. And by the way, we run one of the largest supply chains in the world. We need to do something about this. Interestingly enough, one of the employees in my forum came up and said, I was a war refugee and I was trafficked. I also started asking tracing questions. So if you sat in my office and did a review, tell me about how where does that come from? Trace it all the way back to the raw materials. If the CEOs in this room started asking tracing questions, can you imagine the flurry of activity that would go on in your organization and the dialogue it would create? So that was the informal part. The formal part was we had a global procurement operation that was global and covered supply chain, it covered accounts payable, warehousing, the entire purchase to pay, with a lot of formalized global processes. So we began to take those global processes and do the same thing we did on safety and the environment and security, and add human rights and human trafficking. So supplier qualification, your RFQs, how you bid. Anybody in here that does bidding to buying services or buying products knows you usually condition a bid on technical capability, quality, and price, but you can also condition it on human rights and human trafficking. We also started to look at what are the accountabilities down through the supply chain. Anybody in here in a big corporation knows that you can go way deep. I had a case of welding and metallurgy that went almost 12 deep. So you've got to commit to go all the way through your supply chain. Audits, supplier relationship monitoring, all those things become corporate indicators to attack slave labor, and it exists.
Very good. So, Rick, I was wondering if we could pick up on that. Your organization signed the California Transparency in Supply Chains Act of 2010. What have you done since signing that to ensure that your supply chains are free of forced labor?
Well, first, by signing that accord, we were already in compliance with it because of our partnership with the Fair Labor Association and their reporting requirements. We more than complied with that California Act. So we didn't have to do anything different than we were already doing. And what we're already doing is in part captured in the title of our afternoon here, Unveiling the Hidden Labor Costs. So unveiling something that's hidden is another definition of transparency. I would say that's the verb to actualize the unveiling. And there we have a reporting mechanism in our company that we think has set a standard for transparency. It's called the Footprint Chronicles. You can go on Patagonia.com, and you can trace our entire supply chain on that platform. But you don't only see a list of the factories, the Tier 1 factories as they're called, where our products are made, but you can go in and meet the people in those factories in videos and interviews. And most importantly, you can also meet the factory owners, and through a long process, it's taken us a few years, you can hear them tell you what they think's good, and then what we've persuaded them to reveal is maybe not so good about their operations. So to us, that's transparency. That's giving all of you, the consuming public, visibility over our supply chain. And it's telling what's good, and most importantly, it's telling what's not so good, where we need to fix things. Now, that's through Tier 1. So the real problems in our apparel industry lie below that. And that's where we are going next. So we are completing a mapping exercise to find out the suppliers that are supplying the suppliers into what we call Tier 2 and 3. And it gets messy, and it gets complicated. And we are a small company comparatively. We're $650 million in annual sales. Our Tier 1 suppliers, there are only 80 of them, cut and sew factories, we call them in our business. Under them, the people, the mills and the dye houses feeding them number about over 300. So we're in the process of mapping those, and then we're going to bring them into our transparency system as well. That's our commitment.
Very good. Now, Nina, one of the most troubling parts of human trafficking involves child labor. There's an estimated more than 200 million child laborers across the globe. Tell us a little bit about what your organization is doing, including for the suppliers of the suppliers, to try to attack that problem.
Thank you, Peter. Actually, there's new data out this week from the ILO. So the number of child laborers in the world is down by 1/3 to 168 million,
Yeah, that's good.
which I hope our organization had something to do with. I'm sure it did. And GoodWeave specifically addresses child labor in the carpet industry in India, Nepal, and Afghanistan. And the model is we work at every level of the supply chain, from consumer down to a remote village in India, and we address really two main underlying issues that are the root causes of child labor, and it's invisibility, which has been touched on by the panelists already, and profitability. So we have a label, the GoodWeave label, that goes on the back of a carpet that can be traced back down through the supply chain, and the label is a tool to raise consumer awareness. So we work in marketplace in North America and Europe to raise consumer awareness about the significant problem of child labor in the handmade carpet industry and other informal labor sectors. The idea is that the more consumers ask for this label on the product, more companies will sign up to GoodWeave to use our certification label. We have a licensing program for companies. The magic moment is when a rug importer retailer signs up, and from then we map their entire supply chain in these countries where we operate through our local offices and local staff in those countries. We monitor at the factory level, the primary level, which is usually the exporter in this case, and at all subcontracting levels into cottage industry, loom settings in villages, and directly into homes, which is a lot of what we're doing in Afghanistan. So that's one part of it. When we so there's a deterrent effect that comes from the fact that our inspectors could show up at any time on a random surprise basis. Sometimes we find child labor. We've rescued almost 4,000 children in just over 15 years from carpet looms in these countries. When we identify child labor, we rescue children. We provide them rehabilitation support, which means if they don't have a family to go back to, we have rehabilitation centers where they can go and be treated and offered education or vocational training, depending on their age, until they're 18 or in grade 10. And the other part of the model is doing preventive work in the worker communities, which could involve worker awareness training on workers' rights and specifically around child protection, but also education, sponsorship, and a range of other services in the community.
Terrific. I want to turn to Bangladesh in a second, but before we do that, Gina, I was wondering if we could come back to you and just if you were, with all this effort, if you were in that BA situation again, are we still in the same place, basically, in terms of what you could possibly do?
No, I would have a hotline.
Okay.
I mean, the global hotline, we've got one in the U.S., a hotline that's been funded by the government, run by Polaris. Google has given us a $5 million grant to begin the process of building a global hotline, and the GSMA and AT&T have come in to try to help us get one number. So there's a hotline. The issue with the hotline, though, Peter, is it's only as good as the root structure. So with the hotline comes good guy law enforcement. That's important, and service provision. And we're trying to build a connectivity around the world where we can connect and help along the way. I also would have gone in the back of that plane and sat on that guy's lap and said, "Who are you? What are you doing? And who is she?" Now,
I think we're getting to know you a little better now, right? Fair enough. Let's turn to Bangladesh for a second, or for more than a second. The recent fire there has caught renewed concern about global labor supply chains. Tell us how BRAC responded to that.
Well, let me go back to the child labor for a moment. In 1990s, when there was Senator Harkin's brought a bill in the Congress for excluding import of goods produced by child labor. So in Bangladesh garment industries, we had a lot of child labor in the sense that under 14 children were working in Bangladesh garment industries. And that bill created a situation where we had to do something about it. So some of the girls who were working in the garment industry who were below the age of 14 were taken out. We had to provide them with a stipend, provide education to them. So it was a good thing in the sense that it forced Bangladesh to do the right things for children who, because of poverty, were having to work in garment industries and not getting the primary education that they deserved. So we provided education and we provided some stipends, and so that helped in getting rid of child labor in garment industries. And now, of course, we have created almost 4 to 5 million jobs in garment industries in Bangladesh, and it is a promise for change in the way that women find jobs in industry which women didn't come into jobs before. So formal sector jobs are available for women. So this is something which has been a positive element in getting women coming out of their villages, not getting married at the age of 13, so coming into and finding a job, working hard, marrying later, producing less children. So all kinds of things has happened in Bangladesh over the last 20, 30 years, where we have been able to reduce maternal mortality by 80%, fertility by almost 75%. From fertility came down from 6 to 2. So all kinds of things has happened because of the opportunities which is created by garment industry. And of course, Bangladesh is also famous for microfinance, financial services to the poor. So all kinds of things we did which had an impact on the conditions of poverty. So poor people have come out of poverty and have been able to do that. But then, so we have a problem. Problem is that there are conditions of work in garment industries which created a collapse of a building, which you all know about it, which happened a few months ago, where 1,134 people died. So it's each individual is a person who is a mother, a wife, a wage earner, and contributor to the family's well-being. So I remember one woman I recall, which we are now working with, is called Rosina, who is 23 years old. She was trapped in the Rana Plaza building in a small pocket for 3 days. Her arms was under a beam, trapped under a beam, and people couldn't get to her because the building might collapse further. So they provided her with a electric chainsaw for her to cut her own arm and come out, and that's what she did. And she came out after 3 days, and then we are providing her with trauma counseling and medical services. Now, well, she used to earn $115, about 9,000 taka per month, working 10 to 12 hours a day. And she was contributing to the only member of the family who just contributing to her family budget. So this woman is now having to, no, we are trying to put prosthetics to get her arms working and providing her training to get into business, which she could run. So we are trying to help this one. So this is one family's thing, but there has been multiple families who have suffered from these deaths and, of course, injuries and all kinds of things. So what has been happening over the last few months that after that, there has been a lot of consciousness among people in these countries where you, of course, wear some of the Bangladeshi-made clothes, where Rosina's production is, you have connection with Rosina to some extent. But, so there has been some pressure on garment industries to do something about conditions of service or working conditions. So there is a North American manufacturer or buyers have now got into an alliance for Bangladeshi Bangladesh workers' safety, and we, as an organization, have gone into the board with this alliance. So there is a board of directors which is going to work on improving the garment industry's working conditions, pay, and all kinds of things. So what we are looking for at this moment is that the garment workers will have a safe place to work in, so some kind of inspection to see that the safety is assured. Secondly, improve wages, and that means that some buyers will need to provide a fair price. So that also would help. And third thing is to go on buying, because we need this industry and we need jobs created for women. And I think ultimately, if we could do that, then you are helping us to go on producing in the right kind of products for your market, and you are paying at the right price so that people have a decent wage job. And thirdly, the voice of labor. What was lacking in Bangladesh? I'll tell you a story. That Rana Plaza building was a 6-story building, and the bottom of the building, the ground floor, was occupied by a bank called BRAC Bank, which we own. I'm the chairman of BRAC Bank. But the day before, the manager of our branch said that there's a crack in the building. So we said, stop it immediately. So we went to the central bank and said that we are stopping that branch. So their branch was stopped the day before. So we had no problems about evacuating our staff. There was no problem about that at all. So none of our staff suffered. But what happened is that garment industry women were asked to go to work, otherwise they would lose their jobs. So the article that I wrote to the New York Times, which was published, I said that the only thing which was lacking was the women, despite the fact that they knew it was dangerous, they had to go. There was no voice. There was no trade union. So we wanted some kind of a unionization of labor so that their voice is heard. And employers just don't do criminal negligence, the kind of negligence they showed in Rana Plaza disaster case. So that's what we are looking for.
Right. And I look, whenever anyone hears a heart-wrenching story, and the one you just told certainly would qualify, there's a desire to act. But I want to challenge you all on whether we're acting as effectively as we can. A professor, Richard Locke, who had been at MIT and is now at Brown, as was pointed out to me beforehand, has studied the effects of various corporate efforts to improve global labor supply chains. Right. And I'm just going to read the summary of his conclusion, which is that private voluntary compliance programs promoted by global corporations and non-governmental organizations alike have produced only modest and uneven improvements in working conditions and labor risks in most global supply chains. Is he right? If he's right, what do we have to be doing differently? And if he's wrong, why? Nina.
He's right. I think that Richard Locke's research is pretty compelling, and many of us have touched on some of the answers here already. He was looking at some initiatives. I think there's a big focus on a Nike factory monitoring program, but the study really looked at Tier 1 factory monitoring, and we've all been talking about here the importance of Tier 2 and Tier 3 and the fact that a lot of labor exploitation, not just child labor, bonded labor, and all kinds of exploitation happens more in the informal labor sector, which typically is in Tier 2 and Tier 3. So I think it's really important to have a way of getting in to those communities, not just to do inspection and monitoring, and that's the other point, because inspection and monitoring isn't enough. If we're working in communities where there's little access to education and extreme poverty, then we're always going to have these problems. There has to be an accompanied effort around education, worker organizing, freedom to associate, and social programs in communities when they don't exist. And that will help us tackle the root causes.
Well, I'm also just curious. One of the other arguments that's been made is even with the second and third stages, tiers of going down the supply chain, that unless you're changing the relationship in terms of the whole process of production. So, for example, if you've got a crunch where you haven't managed your inventory very well and you need a lot of product done in 3 days, that is going to put a lot of pressure on the production process and might well lead to abuses in a way that if it's kind of more evenly spread out over time is less likely to do so. That's not solved just by kind of tier 2 and tier 3 monitoring.
And two, in that kind of situation, they oftentimes go to another vendor that is way off the radar screen. So, I think we put a lot of stock in audits, and I think audits are a component. There's no one piece that's not good, but it doesn't work on its own. Audits are in arrears, and as a person who ran a supply chain that had 100,000 suppliers, the practical reality of trying to do audits doesn't work. So you got to catch it up front. And back to some of the processes, there are very specific tactics that I think we have to hold companies accountable for stewarding as to how they do their buy. And you got to follow the money, and you've got to do it in ways that qualify suppliers, that you bid and you condition it on involvement in anti-trafficking, having a reputation of supporting human rights. You've got to do supplier relationship management. Anybody that's run a big company knows you have tiers of suppliers, and you can sit down with those top suppliers and make it really clear what your expectations are, and then you start doing random visits as part of that. That sends a trickle-down effect through your supply chain. And I gave you an example earlier, which was a true one. We had a major problem, and it was 12 deep, and it was metallurgy, and it was welding, and it started with really big suppliers and ended up, in this case, in China, but it was way deep. And if you start thinking about people and where people can be hidden, you've got to be able to track that all the way through. And I know I got in a debate with Chamber of Commerce recently in an event in which they were saying, well, that's ridiculous. You can't hold companies accountable for that. And I said, yeah, you can. You got to start. You have to start. That doesn't mean you're going to get it perfect, and you're not going to get it all the way down, but you have to do something.
And other than Patagonia, the present company excluded, who would you point to as doing this kind of the best in terms of major U.S. corporations? Is anyone doing what, kind of state of the art, or are we all kind of falling short?
No, the answer is I don't think we understand enough about how to do state-of-the-art, but I think companies, and this is where we have to get really clear about boycotts and how you certify and how you positively reinforce. If you take a Walmart and what they found in the fishing industry, and as they dug deeper and deeper, they found more and more slave labor in the fishing industry. I mean, it's really rampant. And you have to give them credit, because everywhere they turned, they found something else. Or FSI doing ethical brokering of people. So I think what we have is we're knitting together some best practices that companies can start to do in an integrated way. And that's one of the things that I know I'm personally involved in, is the development of a toolkit that helps companies begin to think about what's the integrated approach to make sure you get slavery out of your supply chain.
Yeah, and we partnered with Walmart to in turn reach out to other apparel and footwear companies and create a coalition to develop standardized tools, to a toolkit that we would all use, all with the same tools in the kit, to measure these impacts through the entire value chain. We began with just environmental impacts. That was by far the easier place to make the first step forward. But soon this group aligned around adding social labor impacts into the measurement tools. And those tool sets are going to be delivered in about 6 weeks. And working with NRDC, those toolkits now are customized to measure Tier 2 and 3 suppliers. And since we started it, which is now less than 3 years ago, with just a dozen companies, we have in the group over 100 companies now, and many NGOs, and we have government representatives from Asia and the US and the EU. We have about 6 universities. And collectively, we represent almost 40% of the market share for apparel and footwear globally on planet Earth. So I think there's hope in that. Everyone in this group is really dedicated to this idea of consistent, standardized, deep measurement to, again, illuminate the problems. Because, you know, with illumination comes, when you have a group like this, benchmarks. You got everybody using the same tool. They're all measuring the same way. They collect their measurements, and then the disparities are really revealed. And you know, we are hoping that that creates effectively a race to the top, and also creates a political climate, perhaps, for governments to come in and force the changes and change the rules. Because at the end of the day, changing the rules may be the best thing we could do to solve these problems.
I just wanted to add one thing, which is a lot of the world's business is not done by major corporations. And in the case of the industry I work in handmade textiles in this carpet industry, there's over $400 million of trade done globally every year. And the companies that are doing the buying and selling are small private companies that are typically, you know, sole operator or small family businesses, even the import buyers that sell to the major retailers, and they don't have compliance officers and they don't have people on the ground to assess labor conditions. So I think it's really, just as a part of this kind of mosaic that Jean was referring to, I think it's really important that we have solutions that, like GoodWeave, but not only GoodWeave, that can help some of these industries that have consistent problems throughout the industry, that can enable them to do it. That's what we're there for, because the individual companies don't have that power.
You know, I might also add, we're in discussions with Oliver and his Tau management, which you just heard his commitment before we came on the stage here, and we're very interested in that as a company. That if you could, through full transparency, create with a model like he's got, perhaps a visibly improved supply chain that you could hold up to the world as a case study about how it could be done. And then through transparent reporting, you show what the rest of the world's up to. You create a shift in political climate. It will happen.
The other thing for especially a large supply chain is prioritization and knowing where the risks are in the world. And I'll come back to that later, because I think we need to talk about data. But understanding where the risks are and then going after that and making sure, because where GoodWeave is versus an ExxonMobil, there's a lot of gulf in between, and I might have to prioritize and go after. For instance, we've talked about clothing, we've talked about electronics. I'm particularly interested in construction, because construction is notoriously bad on slave labor.
No, I just wanted to say that the also responsibility of the government of countries like Bangladesh to ensure that the right kind of condition exists. So we only had 18 inspectors of more than a couple of thousand factories. So there was a negligence from the government side.
Well, and that's an important point. I mean, in the fire, I mean, there were fire escapes. They were just the Bangladeshi managers had locked them,
also locked up.
Right. So, what responsibility is it of the local government to be enforcing their own laws and regulations?
No, absolutely. To keep the certainly gates open when there is a fire, that kind of thing. And also corruption. Inspectors would be given a couple of shirts from the garment industry and they'll go away, so they won't do the right job. So now, of course, we are looking at how to monitor the inspectors also, how to
monitor the monitors.
Monitor the monitors. I mean, this is needs to be done in some way.
Rick, and then we're going to open up for questions right after this.
Just one more little insight regarding Bangladesh. Our industry, as all of you probably know, it started in England with the Industrial Revolution, when conditions, labor conditions forced the industry to shift to the northeastern United States. When there were fires and riots and issues there, it shifted down to the southeastern United States, and with globalization, it shifted to Asia, first to China, and then it shifted to Southeast Asia and then South Asia. And after the Bangladesh incident, there were in a restaurant about a dozen executives from many of the major companies in our coalition, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, who were looking at each other and said, "You know what? There's no place left to go. We might, some of us think we could go to Africa and perhaps shift to there, but look around the world. This is the end of the line. It's really time to do something about this." So there is a near universal commitment, at least amongst the companies I'm talking to, and that's over 100 of them at this point in our sector, who are absolutely committed to fixing this problem, who are unwilling to shift it to some other place on our planet.
All right, let's open it up. There are microphones that will be that will come to you. Let's start over here.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Hastings. There's two things that I have one question and one comment. One thing that I haven't heard anybody talk about is the role of consumers. I mean, after that Bangladesh thing happened, I had no idea that, I just had never made the connection that I go to the discount stores like everybody else and buy these things that are made in conditions that are not normal. And so it does seem to me that education of the consumers is another important pathway to get people to understand we can't continue to get clothes that are so cheap in this kind of condition. So that's one thing. The other thing is what I heard after the Bangladesh incident is that much of the industry that was especially focused in Europe had gotten together and come up with some kind of agreement, but the U.S. industries were unwilling to sign on. So I'm trying to get a clear understanding of what do we want people to, industries, what do we want them to sign on to? And will it prevent all kinds of things? Because mostly you focus on child labor or you focus on working conditions, but would anybody have caught that this building was going to just collapse the next day?
Thank you, Anne. I think you're right that the consciousness among consumers is a very important element of getting the brands to improve working condition from the factories that they buy from. You are quite right that there are now two entities. One is called Alliance, which is by the North American North American buyers, and another is Accord, which is created by the Europeans. So there are two entities trying to help in the situation of improving Bangladesh's workers' working condition, inspection, and also looking at wages and monitoring of systems and so on. So basically, BRAC as an organization was in fact invited by the North American Alliance for Worker Safety to come on board. So we have joined the board, and we have also brought in with us the chairman of the BJMEA, which is the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers Association. So we brought them in because we felt that there's no point in talking in confrontation with each other, but also bring them in so that we can improve working condition and workers' safety together. So already the alliance, which is the North American Buyers Alliance, they have already creating a fund so that they could guarantee bank loans at low cost to garment industries who wishes to improve their infrastructure. So for better health and safety, to improve health and safety standards. So that's what is happening. And also the European ones are also trying to do the same thing. So we have now organized what we call a consultative group that both Alliance and Accord could get consultation from. So there is a Bangladeshi consultative group which is trying to help both parts, Accord and Alliance, to do the right thing for Bangladesh workers.
Can I just speak to a minute to the consumer? I think you're exactly right. Consumers have enormous power.
Yeah.
The studies, though, are clear they're fickle, and their memories are short. And so that's the problem. But there are some, we've got Walk Free doing amazing work now on campaigns. We've got Made in a Free World, where we're beginning to try to leverage the idea that consumers who are aware will do the right thing with the buying power. I don't think it can solve the problem, but I think especially the millennials, the younger people are really focused on, I want to buy from brands who are green, who are clean, and all of that. So we have to focus on that. I just don't think we can put a lot of stake in it to be a massive change maker for us.
And the coalition that I referred to earlier that we co-founded, the measurement tools that we've created, the group does intend to make them consumer-facing. To do that, it first has to verify all the data coming out of the supply chain to make sure there's no possibility of fraud, and we're working on protocols for that right now.
Okay. We had a lot of hands going up. Let's go right in the middle there, you, sir.
My name's Randall Krantz. My name's Randall Krantz. I'm based in Bhutan, and people think of it as kind of the bastion of gross national happiness. Given their own passive development, they would end up doing the same thing that Bangladesh is doing. And so one of my questions is, they have huge challenges with enforcement, and you've mentioned that. How do you create a culture of compliance? Because this isn't just about, labor laws. It's about humanitarian. It's about the social. It's about the environmental. It's about paying your taxes. And the companies in Bhutan and the same in Bangladesh, they have, there's a system that is pushing them to push things under the carpet. And without creating a culture around compliance, moral sets of values for business leaders, it's going to be really hard to change any of this. So curious, both in your supply chains, but also in Bangladesh, how you're approaching that.
Well, I thought the first thing to do, of course, is to give workers right to organize and do collective bargaining. So if this is now accepted in Bangladesh. Of course, the garment industry manufacturers were opposed to having trade unions in their factories, but now that we have brought in the trade union as one of the conditions in which workers' rights could be protected, they are relenting, and they are, instead of calling them trade unions, they're calling trade, not trade association, but workers' organization in the factory. So they are now accepting that, and only the compliance, I suppose, ultimately would be protected by workers themselves. I mean, that's the only thing one could do. Outsiders can't do it all the time.
Nina, and then we'll go to another question.
Yeah, just a couple of comments to that point of creating a culture of compliance. In the informal labor sector, there aren't always unions, and workers are dispersed, and we're doing some work, particularly in India, at the community level to create, we call them child-friendly villages, where you're working very holistically in the village so that, and in the case of textile production, there are whole regions involved here. So it's a very sustainable model eventually that's built on a lot of volunteerism at the village level, where we're raising awareness about their rights, we're teaching them about child protection, we're enabling village-based schools to come in where there aren't any, and that's one way. But I think we haven't talked about yet here the role of the government, and we're seeing in our work, and I know some of my colleagues doing similar work, that the environment that we're working in, frankly, those of us doing a lot of corporate engagement work, particularly with the kinds of companies we're working with, is a bit hostile. And there needs to be some incentives and rewards for whether it's small producers that are working in a sustainable way in Nepal, or importers and retailers here that are also bringing sustainable manufacturing, whether it's labor rights or environmental. We need to see more of that. I think that's on the horizon.
Just going to make a real quick comment because I love the question. On my list of things that you have to do is the culture of compliance, and that varies from place to place. But you have to go to the buyers, and the buyers have to make sure they don't buy from bad actors. They have to engage in prosecution. They have to. There are lots of things you can do that we could get in an offside discussion, but creating a culture of compliance, I think you don't want to underestimate it. I think it's really powerful.
Let's go right up here.
Heather Franzese with LaborLink. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to the opportunity for technology to help surface information and transparency in supply chains. We heard in the last session from Ushahidi that they're using technology and mobile to surface new information. I work on a platform that, full disclosure, Patagonia and GoodWeave are using in their supply chains, but it goes beyond mobile, I think, as well. So thoughts on technology and opportunity there?
This is a really big issue. And right now, we're trying back to, I'll start with hotlines, and there are lots of other things, but I'll turn it back after that. Right now, we're trying to gain global connectivity. And if you go on the streets of Pattaya in Thailand, or go to Cambodia, or go to other countries, you will see that the people orchestrating this are fully connected technologically. We have to be better connected, and we have to be able to act faster. So what we're trying to work with right now, and AT&T took this with us to GSMA, and she was just on, I just talked to her in the restroom about their commitment to help us get one global number that will then allow people to be connected globally, that would connect into a global coordination center that would allow us through technology to reach out to law enforcement, to reach out to service providers and connect everyone. That's only one piece of it, but clearly that has to happen.
Let's go in the back there.
But we're also looking at RFID and all sorts of other things like that too. Could you track people?
Sorry, go ahead, and then we'll go to the other lady who had her hand up.
Okay, thanks.
Patiently. Thank you.
So my name is Teresa. I'm with the Walton Family Foundation, and I work on the seafood industry. And a number of major seafood buyers have made commitments to sustainability, environmental sustainability. But it's clear that human rights abuses in the seafood supply chain are more urgent because you catch some illegal fish, people say, oh, too bad, it's already dead. You find out that you have slave labor in your supply chain, and it's a huge issue. So I'm wondering if there's any reason to believe that when you're making an effort to source environmentally sustainable products, if you can have any more trust that the labor piece is in line too, or if that's just a completely false assumption. How much can we piggyback these social commitments on one another to make it easier to dig down or to have better assurances that what you're buying is clean on all fronts?
Well, I think that if an employer is environmentally sort of conscious and ethical in their productive behavior, there will also be much more ethically and morally correct with their workers' conditions and so on. So I suppose that if you're looking at environmentally friendly producers, I mean, they would also have the right kind of values, I should think.
Well, I can confirm that, because in our tier 1 supply chain, those companies, those suppliers who are environmentally compliant, and not just compliant, but actually trying to take environmental improvements to standards way beyond compliance, are also very, equally dedicated to social labor improvements in their factories and their companies. So there is, without doubt, a direct correlation between the two, and I know that because I know a lot of the individuals who own those factories, and I've got to know them as friends, and you can confirm that once you get to know them as people. Yeah. Now, I don't know, we're, again, just mapping our tier 2 and 3 right now, and we're in the process of getting to know a number of those factory owners, and it's a different story, as we've all come to understand this afternoon.
Nina?
I just want to make a comment in the fishing industry, which is something I don't know a lot about, but I imagine that there aren't a lot of similarities to, say, factory level. I've heard there are a lot of human rights abuses in the fishing industry, and I would just say that we have to start with the core ILO conventions. Most of these countries where we're sourcing products from have ratified these core conventions, and we have to, I think, for people sourcing, whether it's fish or other products, have to be diligent about making sure that whoever is doing the sourcing for them is applying those labor rights in that situation. And I'm not sure in the case of something like fishing that the applying, though yes, there's a level of consciousness and commitment in applying good practices around what kinds of nets you use and that sort of thing. There may still be bonded child laborers on fishing platforms in the middle of the ocean. So we have to make it a requirement. We can't assume that because there's an environmental protection element there that the labor rights piece is being dealt with. So I don't know about that industry, but I would be cautious.
I think corporate cultures are really important to look at, and so I do think that there's a high correlation about being good on one element versus another. The thing about labor is it's deep and it moves. So you can buy and sell people over and over again, and you can move it. And fishing's a perfect example. You start with Burmese moving down into Thailand, and people start to look, and then you get Cambodians into Indonesia, then you get people into New Zealand. It starts to move around, so it's harder to look deep at labor. So I don't think it's fair to assume one versus the other.
Have you been pre-equipped with a mic? Great.
I have, thank you. I'm Irene Khan. I'm a Director General of the International Development Law Organization. We work on rule of law, human rights issues, and I have myself worked for a number of years in business and human rights. And what we have found is that these kinds of compliance arrangements work where there is independent inspection and where there is engagement of labor and empowerment of the workers themselves. And that's why I'm making these points, because I think it's interesting to look at the accord of the Europeans in the context of the garment industry in Bangladesh and the alliance of the American brands. The accord has been endorsed by the International Labour Organization. The accord allows labor to participate in the process of verification, and the accord also engages, is much more transparent because it has independent inspections. The alliance, on the other hand, doesn't allow those things. In many ways, the alliance is doing what has been done in the past in the supply chain, in the garment industry. And the accord has tried, as a result of the Rana Plaza disaster, the factory disaster, has tried to push the debate further. And it would be, I think it would be very useful for the North American brands to see how they could actually raise and make more robust the inspection system. Rana Plaza is not the first time there's been a disaster, and it's not going to be the last time either, unless we really look at how you engage and empower workers and how you get independent verification and inspection. Thank you.
I think it's a very, very good comment from one of my board members. She's on my board. So I think we have put one of our senior staff onto the board of Alliance. So maybe you should now talk to him and see if we can get the Alliance to do the same thing as Accord is doing in Europe.
I know there are other questions, but we are running short on time, and I wanted to make sure we had time for just some final comments from each of the panelists. What I'm hoping you can do, and we'll just kind of go down from Nina back to Jean, is for the folks in the audience, give at least either a specific fact that they should walk away from this with, or a concrete specific action they can take, or if you'd like to quickly do both.
Okay, well, this is GoodWeave's first year at the CGI, and we're announcing our commitment here. And it's really around building the market share for child trafficking-free products, or for ethical products in carpet specifically. And we're looking for companies. So if anybody is here specifically that buys or sells handmade carpets, we'd love for you to get involved in our commitment, which will end child trafficking in the carpet industry by the end of this decade, so please get involved. I just wanted to mention some other things. Someone mentioned consumers, and there's a lot consumers can do. So make the extra effort, and if you have to pay more, get a Patagonia fleece, buy a certified carpet, get fair trade coffee. Those are just a few things.
Thank you. Rick?
Well, it's a little bit in the future, but we are working hard at our company to take this coalition and use it to go consumer-facing with a standardized measurement, a standardized rating that includes not just environmental impacts but social labor impacts. We're convinced that empowering all the consuming public to make those judgments about what they want to pick and select is going to be a powerful tool. So we're hoping that we can push this group to go public with all these ratings within 2 years, as soon as we verify that data. So stand by. It's the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. The rating is called the Higg Index. We branded it that. And we are hoping to turn that out to the world and shine the spotlight on it soon.
Thank you.
I think as a consumer, if you go on insisting that that you are supplied with the production from factories which are compliant, or who looks after their interests of the workers as well as the right working condition, health and safety. So this is what will keep the pressure up with these with the big brands which buys from third world.
Going to helicopter up and then come back down. First of all, we really don't know the extent of slavery in the world. Data is a huge problem. Everybody does extrapolations. We need almost a global stand down. I'd like next July 2014 to put teams in every country in the world and do primary data collection, because everyone's extrapolating. Right now, there's anywhere from 21 to 27 million slaves. They say the profit's about 32 billion. We took some of the data that they did and did just a little bit of econometrics on it and got to 250 to 300 billion dollars. That's a country this size. It's the 23rd largest country in the world. That's the economy slave trade is in. So we have to begin to look at data, and we're going to need to put together a coalition to do that. Global hotline, 888-3737, 888-3737, 888. If you see something, say something. It exists. It's in your backyard. Bring it up. Help us go global with this. It's going to be incredibly powerful. And then finally, if you own a company, start asking questions. Tomorrow, ask tracing questions. When I asked tracing questions, people started saying, where does it come from? How far down does it go? And made in the free world, we're going to begin to figure out how to certify supply chains going forward. So look for that.
Okay, well, I hope you'll all join me in thanking not only the panelists, but those who made commitments. And hopefully by this time next year, we'll make more progress. Thank you.